I'm co-host James Ash.
And I'm co-host Phil Scaife.
Welcome to the Business Lockdown. Welcome to the Business Lockdown and welcome back. He's our regular now. He's almost our resident guest, like our very own version of Dr. Hilary Jones.
Yeah,
Mr. Jonathan Leafe. How are you doing?
Good morning, James.
Good
Phil.
morning, Jonathan.
So this is the fourth episode in a four-part series. Before the first episode of that four-part series, we introduced Jonathan, his business background, CEO, business coach, mentor, ran a very successful digital marketing and media marketing company called Strawberry, and these days finds himself working with a number of agencies, taking them from strength to strength with his vast business background and expertise. And we're incredibly lucky to have him on the show. Well, just run back if you guys haven't captured any or all of the episodes. Episode 1 was business resilience, building a bulletproof business. Episode 2 was animal instinct, and that was, are you a bear, a meerkat, or a deer? And we looked at people's personalities and whether they retreat and wait to see what happens in the environment around them, or if they're just go-getters and jump straight out and head to it fast-paced. And then last week's episode was retreating to the core, ready to go again. Episode, and we touched on amplifying your business, which works as nicely into this week's episode, which is going for high growth after lockdown. So it just lends ourselves. So all of you guys out there that have been developing new skills, resetting as we worked on last week, going back to the core, analysing your business, your team, and coming out of this COVID period stronger and in the best possible way. So this week's episode, going for high growth, is perfect for those of you out there. But before we touch on that, I had a
positive note.
Yeah, on a positive note, yes, indeed. And but before we touch on, or we delve into that, something that sprung to mind, which with Jonathan, was you interviewed Lord Sugar, Sir Alan Sugar.
Yeah, I did. Yes.
In Hull, when he wasn't that?
No, it wasn't in Hull. It was at his headquarters in London.
And that was because he opened the first out of city retail park? Wasn't it Comet? Was it?
Yeah. Well, Comet was Alan Sugar's biggest customer, and I just happened to work for the advertising agency that did Comet's work, and I was dispatched down to London as part of the team to interview him for the Comet conference. So we had to go down into his Amstrad house, I think it is, to his top floor and interview him. He was a fantastic person to interview. He just did it absolutely off pat. We gave him a script and he said, do I have to follow that? And I said, no, you just use your own words if you want. He looked at the script, used his own words, but said exactly the same thing, and just did it in one take, and he was off. And we did, I chatted with him for maybe 5 minutes before, but he was a joy to work with. Very, very clever guy. And yes, absolutely. And of course, Mike Hollingbury, who owned Comet at the time, pretty much saved Amstrad because, Alan Sugar asked him, will you buy this stuff? No, because no one else would. And he did. And that's how really he got going.
Incredible. And what's the one thing that the big thing that you took from interviewing Alan Sugar?
It's such a long time ago, but I guess probably I still remember it in my mind's eye, his level of professionalism and focus. So he's very, 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 very clear about what he was trying to do always. There was no ifs or buts. His vision was very, very clear.
Oh, interesting.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, let's get straight into it now. So going for high growth after lockdown. I know that you're working with clients on this subject daily. It's so and going for high growth after lockdown. How has that looked working with your clients, and how close are clients feeling now, and yourself? When can we capitalise on this?
Well, now is the answer to that, James. It's you've just got to. I mean, I've been noticeably over the last 2-3 weeks as lockdown is starting to be released. Obviously, Cummings thought it was released some months ago, but we won't touch on that. So as lockdown's been released, I think people are starting to get a little bit more energy back. They're starting to think, well, come on, things are happening. And, and entrepreneurs are brilliant people to work with because they just want to get on and do stuff. They're generally not the bears. They're more like the meerkats at worst, and generally most of them are deers. You just want to, let's get on with it. Let's find something to do. But what I've done is actually given them a little bit of a toolbox to work through. And it's really paying dividends already, because I've noticed I've got calls with all my clients today, and I'm hoping to hear some really good things, because I'm getting some good noises from them, in all honesty. The level of inquiries, the new business coming in, clients that had stopped and now starting to go again. So, I'm very, very optimistic, enthusiastic about what's going to happen in the next few months. So that's the really good news. But the toolkit I've given them is quite simple, really. We have touched on it before, and I know certainly, Phil, you wrote about it. There's only two ways of getting business. There's actually farming it or hunting for it. And as you all know by now, I am a very keen farmer and not such a keen hunter, because the variables are much greater. I mean, the old adage goes that to get a new customer rather than keep an old one costs 10 times as much and takes 10 times as long. And of course, depending on the business that you're in, just by ringing up some people today doesn't mean you're going to get the business tomorrow. That business might happen in a month's time, 6 months' time, a year's time. Sometimes it takes a long time to land that big fish. But farming, you can do it immediately. You can go into your customer base, and if you do your homework properly and have the right conversations, there's always 20 to 50% more revenue in your clients. And the reason that you haven't got it is you just haven't asked for it. That's generally the reason. You just haven't found it. You say, look, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? Did you know we can also do this for you? You've got to go to them with the ideas. Pitch your ideas to them rather than wait for them to speak to you. What do they need? They need loads of things, but sometimes they've just not identified it yet. And what services do you offer that they don't use? Sometimes you do this sort of like usage matrix where you put your clients down the left-hand side and all your services across the top, or products, and tick which ones those clients take. And that's like your traditional gap analysis, but that'll show you straight away where you're missing out. And sometimes this is an under thing. You think you've just got to do it yourself. Don't. You've got a team. Your team is brimming with ideas. They'll come up with ideas you've never considered. Go through each one of your clients with them and brainstorm it and get them to come up with ideas about how you can improve your clients, or sell more products to them, because you're doing them a favor, and there's revenue there. You just need to go and ask for it.
Have you got an example of that? Either, and by an example, something that was like a huge win, or likewise something that really surprised you and your team at the time. That
well, I've got two examples. One which is particular to me, because it was my It was my idea. We had this client who was struggling with their e-commerce site, and I recommended to them. I said, look, you've got terrible blockages here. In fact, I went round the guy who was looking after the website and spoke to the owner and said, your problems are X, Y, Z, da, 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 da. And I can change all of this for you, and we can do this, A, B, C, D, E. And pitched the idea to him, and he went completely quiet. I thought, Christ, I've lost the client. Anyway, I got a call about 3 months later from the boss of the client, said, right, we've discussed it. We've changed things internally. You're on, let's go for it. And that was probably over 3 years, maybe a few £100,000, to be honest. And it was good for us, and it was phenomenally good for the client. They went from, a small turnover, a few £100,000, to millions. So these are the sort of things, but if you don't think of them and you don't pitch it, then they don't happen. So that's the one example from my perspective. And another example from a client, this is actually going on at this very moment in time. He was already having this conversation with someone who wanted to do this project. And I said, well, at the time, why don't you go into business with them? Why don't you set up a joint venture, use some of the money you borrowed from the government on the business bounce back loan, and put it into this joint venture. And that's exactly what they've done. So they get all of the development work, but all of the IP and things like that is coming from the other side of the table. Great example of collaborative working on a project. So yeah, that revenue is there. You've just got to go and look for it. Everybody who's watching this webinar can do that today, do that this week. And I absolutely guarantee they can generate between 20 and 50% more revenue out of their existing clients. But they won't, because they're fixated by getting new business, because everybody has this hunting instinct. And they think, that's to grow my business, I need to go out and hunt and find new clients, and you don't. However, of course, you do need to find new clients as well, because some of your older clients will be on the way down or whatever. So you do need to bring those in, but you need to be more measured. You can, to do this, I mean, just use your network, speak to people, make connections, ask who needs extra help. I mean, at this moment in time, there might well be casualties in certain aspects, and clients need new suppliers for whatever reason, for whatever reason. But if you don't have the conversations, and don't be afraid to ask the direct questions either, but always be honest and generous with your approaches. It's not a case of diving in and slagging the competition off. It's just being warm and being open to these new clients.
And basically, I know we've touched on a previous episode where you've stopped invoicing clients. So you've spoken there about there were casualties.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm sure we can all vouch for seeing people put content out there selling, in how they would normally, and it almost makes you cringe, because everybody's just like giving value, high level value, knowledge-based marketing out there. Connecting with as many people as possible, as we do with the business lockdown. And you see people, doing the standardized selling, and people aren't in that mindset right now. And you've spoke about not invoicing your clients, and just give us if you just remind our
well, I mean, on day one of lockdown, I immediately got in touch with all of my clients and say, look, while this is going on, I'm not going to charge you, because we need to assess. You need to hang on to cash, and I'm on your P&L as being an outlay. So let's just hang on to that, and let's just see where we are. Let's do phase 1, critical budget. Phase 2, what does the next 3 months look like? And now we're in phase 3, which is let's go for it. So I'm starting to charge them again, I'm pleased to say, because I need to buy some wine. I need some money. So
can we expect the check in the post, Jonathan? Is that soon to arrive now? Now we're in phase 3.
So phase 3, we're very much, and the other thing that I'm asking them to do as well, and I think this is, again, everybody's watching, anybody wants to do this, is match your business to the new world. I mean, this has been said a lot now, but the world will be different. There's no question about it, and let's call it that. I mean, let's hope it's a better world, but it will be a new world. I mean, some will be the same, some will be different, but it will be new to us. Post-pandemic, this is a new world for us. What will the new world need more of? What will it need less of, which is also important. What other skills do you have within your business that you can monetize? We're talking from a point of view of training, strategy, creative, coaching. All of these sort of things have real value. But finally, what have you got within your business or processes that you can offer your clients that will lock you in even further? This lifetime value aspect. So to give you an example of that, a lot of these customers, if you from my perspective or creative perspective, a lot of the customers say, well, actually, do we need a full marketing team? Why can't we outsource that? Can we move in there? And so it's a cheaper option but a more flexible option for the client, rather than having to employ that many people, because people are working remotely. So if people are working remotely, they might as well use a remote team. It's sort of all fairly logical. Obviously, clearly, we don't want people to lose their jobs or their livelihoods, but inevitably the new world will be different. And the other thing I'm asking them to do as well, when they're looking at their clients, how fast will their business return to normal? There are some which have thrived since lockdown. If they're food or online or delivering courses online or make wine, for another example, they'll have thrived through it. Some have stayed the same. Some have survived, but it will take a bit of time to get back to normal. And some are really still struggling, hospitality, travel, airlines, etc., etc. These are all going to take their time to get back to where they were before, if at all, of course. And the industry type, are they modern, digitally focused? Are they very entrepreneurial? Are they old-fashioned, or is their business on the way down, or is it on the way up? These are all sort of things that you can assess when you're looking at your client base. And I am talking a little bit from an agency perspective, creative agency perspective, but the same applies to the majority of businesses, whether you're going to be in property or manufacturing. You've just got to think in different ways. Just for the time being, hopefully within 3, 6, 9, 12 months, things will start to look a bit better. But if you do all of these sort of things, of course, you're thinking quicker than your next door neighbor. And that's the critical part. If you want to go for high growth, then you've got to back the right horse. And by doing this, or back the right horses, by going through these thought processes, it will enable you to do that.
Interesting. I mean, you spoke about perhaps with the animal instinct and the deers, and the majority of people in your network, in your client base, and Phil and I, for ourselves as well, are the deers. They attacking it as soon as this attack come about. Where is the opportunity? But based on that, I'd like to just get a bit of insight into client and what, has there been any main areas of anxiety, and if so, how have you addressed that? So it's great we're talking about being optimistic, and generally people in our network are go-getters, are the deers with their animal instincts, but how have you addressed anxieties, or any main levels and areas of anxiety?
Yeah, well, I think the level of anxiety clearly for all of us has been exceptionally high, because it doesn't matter how optimistic you are. If you are an entrepreneur, you're probably not blind optimistic, particularly if you've run a business for a long time, because you realise, you've got that experience to know that out of, as you're running along, it's absolutely fantastic. Suddenly, bang, or you trip over a curve or something which you didn't expect is right in front of you. But I think that level of, if you are that deer and you want to keep on going, you'll jump over it, you'll carry on, you'll swerve it, you'll keep going. So, but what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to give people tool sets which they literally can work through line by line and think about it carefully, because then it allows you to sort of get your focus. Because if you, and I've told you this before, James, and you'll recognize this. So if I throw one ball at you, you'll catch it. If I throw 2 tennis balls at you, you will probably catch them both. If I throw 3, you'll probably catch maybe 1, maybe 2. If I throw 4, you won't catch any. So, you've got to work the process. If you want to high growth through this, you've got to work through the toolbox, through the set. You've got to look at everything. We talked about what we talked about last week, about the core of your business. Make sure that is as good as you can possibly make it. Then you've got to look at your clients. Are they as good as you can make them? Are they the right set of clients that you've got now and for the future? Most businesses grow on the back of having a good client or good clients. That's the easy. It's as they grow, you grow with them. So you've got to back the right horses, as I said before. So these are sort of really important things. You've just got to work your way through. And then, of course, the final part of that is making sure that you've got the right team on the job to deliver your strategy for the future. And the team that you might need in the future is maybe not the team that you've got at the moment. And that again is the harsh reality of business, isn't it? You've got to keep tuning your team to make sure that you've got the best team on the pitch. I mean, Alex Ferguson, while he's got a lot of loyalty to his players, he was constantly bringing in new players to improve his team. And just because you scored 24 this season doesn't mean you will.
Well, and that was at the time. That was at the time when he had the best. So when he had the best team, he was then changing.
He signed Ronaldo. Yeah.
That was he got. I think have you seen the class of '96 with all the youngsters, and it was the time he got rid of Paul Parker, Kanchelskis, and Mark Hughes. Yeah. Not only some of the best players in the team, but the fans' loyalty with those players was incredible. I mean, in terms of risk.
Well, quite. But this is why the leaders and the business owners get paid the big bucks, because these are the tough calls they've got to make. That's what your job is. And you are reliant. You might have multiple hats on, but let's just say the main hat is the business leader. So you've got to lead that business as best you possibly can. And then you change your hat into a shareholder. You might also be a shareholder of the business. You might own the business or partially own it. Put that hat on, and then the business has got to deliver what you want as a shareholder. And then you might put a hat on as being a manager in the business. So then you've got to manage that business as well as possible. I mean, I do differentiate between leaders and managers, obviously, because they are very, very different.
It's interesting you said that. I think it's class of 94, not 96, isn't it? So I'll correct myself. Class of 94. Have you both seen that?
I haven't.
No, I've not seen. I can't stand Man United.
No, it's incredible. I mean, it's such an amazing, even just how they put the documentary together, the movie together. It's amazing just from that point of view. But just touching on what you said there it's known that Alex Ferguson, wasn't really a coach. He wasn't the best coach. Man management was fantastic, and he when I say he owned Man United, not from a financial point, but he knew what was going on inside out within the club. But he got the best coaches in the world involved. Steve McLaren. It's funny, Steve McLaren being a Borough manager, he was never the best manager, but he was one of the world's best coaches. And Alex Ferguson, got the right people in place.
So
we know about the Richard Bransons of this world.
Last week you mentioned David Hall for Entrepreneurs Only. I mean, he, as I say, he is a brilliant coach. There's no question about it. And his resources on the For Entrepreneurs Only website are first class. I did a course with him called Step Change, and one of the things that really stick in your mind is just say, who's on the bus? You actually, is within your gift to put the people on the bus that you want, because that is what makes all the difference. In any business, the team that you've got will deliver to your great clients that you've acquired, and the leadership that you give your team will enable them to deliver to those clients. So all of these sort of things have got to be in balance. But it comes down to those three things, but going for growth is just it's all there. Don't do something that you haven't done before just because you think you should. Follow the rules, follow the methodology, follow the correct path, and you will succeed. You just don't want to run around like a headless chicken saying, "I'm going for growth, I'm going for growth." I don't even know what that means. You've just got to plan it and work through the process and you will get there. But you can't rush it. You've just got to be methodical, but you must do it.
Yeah, and there's a shift of focus there, isn't there? Shifting away from an internal focus of what you are doing and what you have been doing into what your client needs, what your client is, what your client's other problems are that could be solved.
Yeah,
it's
bang on. Phil, you've just gone and said it way better than I did. So I'm going to watch this recording back and write that down, because that's absolutely spot on that. It really is, because you quite often, as a supplier and an expert in your field, you will know what your clients need way before they do. But people sit at home or sit in their offices, sit at home at the moment, waiting for their clients to ask for stuff. But as a supplier, you're way more skilled in what you do than the client is. You'll go to the client and say, "Well, look, I've got this. You need this. If you do it this way, you'll be better off." And everybody can do that, but very few do. Yeah. Because we just feel like, because that's being a good farmer. Because we can't get being a hunter out of our heads when you think new business.
Yeah, I mean, since we last you brought this up maybe 2 or 3 episodes back, and I worked with it a bit since then, the farmer and the hunter approach. And the hunter is a very natural state for a business owner to get into. It's full of ego, isn't it? And it's full of the stuff that we control. It's like, I am great at doing this, so I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do it 100 times. Whereas the farmer is almost the opposite. It's almost like it's about the environment. It's about the client. It's about the circumstances that we're in at that time. It's about, in a farmer's analogy, it's about the ground, the weather, etc. So it's not about things that are in your control necessarily, but it's about listening. It's about asking and listening to cultivate.
Exactly.
So
yeah,
it's not natural, I don't think, to most people who naturally start a business. I don't think it's natural then to farm necessarily.
No, you're possibly right, and I don't think I sort of like really realised I was doing this, and until about 10-15 years ago, in all honesty, and it's just surfaced again in the last few months, because I read a blog from another agency specialist, and he was saying that agencies should be more hunters and less farmers. And I just thought that, well, this is just mad. And I actually, it was one of those things that popped on LinkedIn, and I don't respond to many things, but I did respond to that. And I said, look, I completely disagree with you. But anyway, but there's different ways of doing it. But we talked about, James, you mentioned it last time, about pitching and things like that. And then pitching is one of those sort of things, the new business thing and the relationship. But if you are a great farmer, you will have a much, 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 much better business. No question.
Yeah.
Love that. Well, final words. Well, I mean, final words to wrap up the episode there. I mean, what's the key points to summarise going for high growth after lockdown, Jonathan?
Well, number one, be that farmer. Listen, and as Phil said, number two, listen to those clients, because you will know instinctively what they need coming out of this, probably much better than they do, and go and deliver it to them. Whether it be products, services, different ways of doing things, go and listen to them and help them get back to where they were before. Because most businesses, as I say, grow of course, we supply stuff and we manufacture stuff. Most businesses grow on the back of their clients, buying more or using more services or whatever it is. So if you absolutely curate that and work that forward, and then obviously make sure you've got your best team on the bus. Because if you get those three things of the triangle right, great clients, working well, doing what they need, great team, motivated, led well, and then with the leadership, you're constantly thinking, you're constantly training, you're working with the clients, and it all becomes a very harmonious thing, and you'll benefit enormously from it. And it's simple. This is not rocket science.
Yeah.
It's just thinking, more thinking, less doing in lots of ways.
Love that. Well, Jonathan, thank you for joining us. Just to recap, we've had a 4-part series, which is Business Resilience, Building a Bulletproof Business. Episode 2 was Animal Instinct. What is your animal? Bear, meerkat, or deer? And that's a great one to delve into and see what resonates with you. Episode 3, Retreating to the Core, Ready to Go Again. And today has been all about going for high growth after lockdown. So, and essentially, outlet is simplify, which is key, isn't it? That's like actually and taking action. Listen to these episodes, start making some notes, even if it's 20 minutes per day, just working through these episodes, because there's so much value here. And this is the reason why we've developed the Business Lockdown, is to connect with as many people around the world and to offer nothing but value to as many people. And
anybody can get in touch with me, James. If they want anything amplifying or they disagree, which is great. I like that too. Yeah.
Perfect. And based on that, where can people find you, Jonathan?
So my website, which is leafe.co.uk, which is Leafe, or jonathan@leafe.co.uk, but use either.
Fantastic. And yeah, so much appreciated, man.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much, James.
Thanks, Jonathan. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us on the Business Lockdown.
Please comment, like, share, and subscribe to help build our global community.
We look forward to seeing you all soon.